name is Shankar. I'm a cloud architect, and you can find my interest on my page where I usually write blogs in some interesting tidbits. Appreciate if you have any comments. Please leave any comments. So today I'm going to talk about a tool called Confd. Um, we know that configuration management is a real pain, especially when you have different services in the form of microservices, and on top of it you have a different environment which could be QA, test, pre-prod, prod. Now how to maintain different configurations for your app for different microservices. So this can be really very challenging, primarily because each of your app will have configuration specific for a different environment. So today I'm going to talk about a tool called Confd. So Confd is a nothing but it is a configuration management tool which helps you achieve configuration or desired configuration state via via startup scripts or files, which I'm going to show it to you right now. So ideally, we know that all environment-based configuration for a Docker container, should be defined in environment variable terms. Usually, we get into the trap of relying on the file-based approach, where of defining a cluster configuration file. As a general principle, you should never bake environment specific settings into your Docker images. And although Docker supports bind mounts that could mount a configuration file on the underlying host into your container at container startup, this does not solve the problem of how you deploy and update these configuration to your underlying host. So one approach to solve this issue, which I'm going to talk about today, is to generate configuration file on the fly at the container startup, where you have a script or utility that examines environment variable passed to the container, and generates configuration file based upon those environment variable inputs. Although you can do this via scripting and other measure, but or any programming logic, but sooner you would be playing catch up game, because you will introduce a lot of conditional logic and scripting, which would make it really heavy, you know when you start using it for your app at different environment and end up facing different problem. So scripting is not something is recommended, and that's why we are going to talk about this tool called Confd, which is an open source tool written in Go. And as you can see on my screen, and it is published at the GitHub URL shown. Confd provides a simple reusable approach that relies on Go templates to define templates for your configuration file, and then run a Go template generator to to render environment specific version of your configuration file template to a configurable location in your file system, where your application or your microservice or your container expects this configuration file to reside. So the Confd supports obtaining environment specific configuration from environment variables, and also a number of other tools like etcd, console, and vault, which you can see in the screen, and even DynamoDB. This makes Confd a very powerful and reusable solution for generating configuration files on the fly, and is a much better long-term approach than using programming logic inside your application code, or some sort of a scripts. So let's probably now jump. Let me introduce the capability via um, via Docker image that we are going to build. So if we take a look at the our build folder structure, if you see we have a folder called etc here, right here, if you can see. So so this is the primary folder for confd, and it has two subfolders basically called conf.d and templates. The conf.d folder stores configuration file, which is what which is a simple any style a toml file created for each template or each configuration file that you wish to generate here. And and It is a toml file, as I mentioned, and if I open this toml file, if you see this is the um, the template that I was talking about. So if you see, there is a source and the destination. Destination is where your actual template would be generated. Ideally, this would be the directory. It directly points to the templates directory here. So keys are nothing but here the slash key that you see, slash title slash enable, are nothing but is a way of representing environment variable, or for confd to look into your environment variable. Ideally, confd would translate this into title underscore enabled, which I'll show you in our Docker file, which is the environment variable that we set. Though this syntax might change based on your config, ideally the configuration management tool that you connect. But for this demo, what I'm going to show you is how to generate configuration based on environment variable that are set in your container. As you remember, I mean, if you can, uh, you need to understand that the environment variable are injected via Docker file, or if you have different cloud environment, even certain cloud environment like AWS supports injecting environment variable via CloudFormation stacks. So that is and it is also an important principle of a 12-factor app to inject environment variable rather than changing configuration via file. And if it is done in a runtime, then it follows the 12-factor app recommendation. So ideally, what you see here, this is nothing but the environment variable, which is translated by the confd, which is given as key. This is the source, as I have already mentioned. This is the temple file that that we refer to, and the the destination temple file that would ideally get generated. And let me move on to this Docker file. So this is a Go app. It's a multi-stage build, which is building image into 3-stage. The crucial part here is the environment variable that we inject. Remember that this is injected during the build process. You can do it also via runtime, via Docker run command, or if it is a cloud environment, you can also do that when you based on the the cloud environment that you are in. So I have inserted via an environment variable, and I'm finally building this app, and we are going to run this app. So let me show you the actual file wherein the modification is going to happen. This is a simple demo concept. If you see, I have I basically look in with this if clause right here. I'm basically looking in for a variable or get variable called title enabled, and see if it is set to true. By default, it is false. and if it is true, I'm going to set the title as this. If it is not, then I'm going to set the title as no. So you can translate this. I'm just doing it with a single line logic, but you can do that you can implement this logic every other place where you want to implement environment specific configuration. So it could be like different files you might have want to do that at different places. So all you need to do is add this logic, check for environment variable if you're using environment variable or other third-party tool. As syntax, you need to check with Confd documentation. uh, but doing via environment is one of the recommended way. So if you see that this template would ideally look into the environment variable and perform this swap logic of populating with the the correct configuration that you want. So that's ideally it. All you have to remember is the directory structure where you specify the source and destination and the keys that you want to modify in the any style index toml file, and the final template that you would generate. Now if you take a look at the Docker file, I have implemented this via entry point instruction. So this is basically the command instruction to run this app, but the entry point instruction is where you would call the confd. So if you see my entry point instruction, I'm basically calling the confd with a key of one time. The keys are defined in generic path syntax to allow for different configuration backends to be used. When using environment variable as the backend here, confd will ignore right here, right? Environment variable here, the confd would ignore any leading slashes and convert all these slashes to underscore. So just remember that in case why this slash, more information you can find in confd documentation. So this is the directory where it will render the template, and the entry point instruction is where I'm asking confd to run only once at startup with a backend of env. So this is basically looking into the environment variable, which is my backend. This can be one of these which I mentioned, HCD, console, and Vault. So based on that, this might change for your environments, and you basically call it at the container startup so that the files can get swapped, and then you basically run an exec which will basically execute this command. So let's go quickly into the shell and run this. Uh, so I've already built it. I've already built the image I'm going to show. So I've already built the image with the name this one. So I'm skipping that step. You basically call docker build and build this image, and this repository I'm going to share it in GitHub, and you can find in my blog post. So I'm going to run this. Okay, I haven't started, sorry. Okay, so okay, it started. So now it is, yep. So we have something listening on this particular port. So let's jump on to my browser and let's see what is happening here. I think we should have title populated. Okay, sorry, I think I'm listening on the wrong port, so let me connect to, should be this 32768. Yeah, so if you can see this, let me go back. So this is the title that we, had mapped in our template. If you recall, let me go there. So yeah, right here. So this is the title that we are seeing on this page here, if you can see. So this is getting swapped at runtime. So that's the magic that Confd ensures, which basically populates your environment variable, and you just need to manage this one single file in your repository, and you would ideally put this at each of your microservice or each of your Docker build folder, and put that on the root part, so that it is pretty clear you know why you have it, and how is this configuration is going to get swapped. So remember this directory path. Directory path is really very critical. I think it expects, I believe it expects the confd and the templates in the actual the actual path. And remember, you can drive this via entry point instruction. And if you see this, I have I forgot to mention this. Basically, I am basically copying the HC confd to the container confd directory, wherein basically this is required because at runtime your confd utility is going to look at your current HC config, the container path, and go to look at the template file, and it's going to basically swap the template file based on the paths that is given here, right here. So it's going to basically change. This is the destination where your actual file will get dropped inside the container under the templates part. Let me log into the container and probably show you. And one more thing, you need to add this. I'm using Alpine, so you need to add this confd before you start. So it expects the confd utility as part of the image, so without which the confd won't be doing the the template swap, or won't be able to handle the template that you have defined, or the template that you are copying from the during the build process. So yeah, so it's a it's cool way, and you can maintain one single file for all the environments for each of your microservices, and do the swap as you need. So let me quickly jump onto the container and show it to you. Where exactly is this? So if you see, there is this this Go app is looking at the templates folder, and if you see this, the file called, this is the file that we swapped. And if you see this, we have the title here. We don't have those if clause coming in here primarily, and confd is basically doing the mapping the template correctly based on the environment variable that you have defined. So let's take a look at the environment variable 2. So if you look at the environment variable here, if you see this title enable true, so basically Confd looks into this particular variable, and if it presents, it goes ahead, modifies, generates this configuration file, and based on the logic that you have defined in your any style toml file, it will basically do the swapping, and you can maintain, and it's a really easy and cool way of maintaining uh, multiple configuration via a single file, and also doing it in via the 12 factor approach, one of the important 12 factor approach, where you generate the configuration during runtime via environment variables. Remember, you can also use one of these environment. So this is where you can come and have a look at support for the other integration with other configuration backends or config management backends, and yeah, and that's all I wanted to say. And if you have any comments, please drop in. I'll be happy to pass on any information. And yeah, thank you.